Brian Tracy is one of the legends of personal development. He's the best-selling author of over 70 books and has given over 2,500 seminars and workshops in 100-plus countries. In this exclusive interview with Chris Widener, you'll hear Brian's best advice on the secrets to high-performance thinking, the power of goal setting, and strategies to overcome obstacles and failures. And we got Chris's permission to put it up on our YouTube channel. Enjoy.
My guest today is Brian Tracy, one of America's leading authorities on the development of human potential and personal effectiveness. He's a dynamic and inspiring speaker, addressing subjects of personal and professional development to companies such as IBM, McDonnell Douglas, and the $1 Million Roundtable. He teaches seminars on leadership, self-esteem, goals and strategies, creativity, and practical ideas to get results fast. He's authored many books, including Turbo Coach, $1 Million Habits, and the 100 Absolutely Unbreakable Laws of Business Success. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Chris.
Good to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. You have been a mentor to me through your books and your tapes and millions of other people. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about to have you here, we're going to talk about some of the books and the audio programs and all those principles. But as I mentioned in the opening, one of the things that I really like to help people do is see the person behind the personality. Right. Because at your level, most people see you on a stage in front of 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 people, and they don't get to have this chance, you know, to just sit down with the man, the woman who they get to see in these big arenas and the big seminars, and just sit there and find out about their life. And so I thought it would be interesting for our viewers to find out the person behind the personality. So tell me a little bit about yourself, your family, where you live, some of those things to help people get to know you a little bit better.
Well, I was born in Canada. I was born in Prince Edward Island, which is as close as you can get to England without being on a ship. And during the war, and grew up in Toronto, and then my family moved to California. So I grew up in California, and my whole experience is American. I love America. I'm a passionate American patriot. And then my family moved back to Vancouver, British Columbia, when I was 16. I finished high school there. I didn't finish, but I finished high school. Yeah. Worked at laboring jobs for several years, and then went traveling. I spent 8 years traveling around the world. I've now traveled in 90 countries. I've spoken in 42 countries since I became a speaker. And I began asking the question, why is it that some people are more successful than others? And coming from a poor background with no money and high school dropout and digging ditches and washing dishes and all of that stuff, I was really frustrated. I could tell you within $1 how much money I had in my pocket for several years because I had no money. I slept on the ground. I slept in my car, an old car. I went on unemployment once. I went on welfare once, just once. In those days, they didn't encourage you to go on welfare. They said, if we ever see you in here again, you're going to be in big trouble. And I'll tell you, they were mean about it. So went back to work. We should try that a little bit more. Yeah. But I finally got into sales. I couldn't get a job in laboring, so I got into sales, straight commission sales, knocking on doors. Getting up in the morning. I used to get up in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd be in the parking lot at 7 o'clock waiting for people to come to work, and I'd knock on doors all day long. I say I used to run from place to place so I could be rejected more often. And I remember one month I made 504 calls and no sales. And I just went from place to place. I was just so frustrated and just barely hanging on by my fingernails, living in a little boarding house, a little room. And one day I went to the top salesman of my company. And I said, what are you doing differently from me? He was making 10 times as much as anybody else. And he said, well, show me your presentation. I'll critique it for you. I said, well, you show me yours and I'll show you mine. Because I didn't know what a presentation was. I was using what I call the blah, blah sell. I'd find somebody go blah, 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 and so on. And he said, well, no, selling is a logical and orderly process that you follow if you want to make sales. And he showed me the process. He showed me instead of talking all the time, to ask questions. Find out if the person is a real prospect. Find out, establish rapport, find out their needs, present, show our product, answer their questions, close the sale, get more sale. I had no idea it was a process. And I was just, the light went on. I still remember to this day. I can remember when the light went on. You know, there's an old saying, the more you do of what you're doing, the more you get of what you've got. And Abraham Maslow used to say, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then the whole world looks like a nail. Well, the only tool I had was blah, blah, just going from place to place and going blah, blah about my product. He said, no, 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 there's a process. It's like a recipe. If you follow the recipe, you can prepare the dish. Now, the breakthrough for me was very simple, is that there's a cause and effect relationship with everything. There's a reason everything happens. All business skills are learnable. All sales skills are learnable. All money-making skills are learnable. Yeah. They're learnable skills. Everybody who has them didn't have them. Now they have them. Well, they had to learn them, just like typing with a typewriter or using a cell phone or reading or writing or anything. They're all learnable skills. And anybody can learn the skills. And anybody, 95% of the population can learn virtually any business or any sales or any money-making skill. Once you've learned the skill, you can use it over and over again. So if you learned a way to make money, then you can use that over and over again. And each time you use it, you get better at it. And each time you get better at it, it takes you less time to get the same result. And that's why some people are more successful than others. That's why people go from rags to riches. That's why some people are rich and other people are poor. People who are rich found usually they specialized, they found and learned a success skill, success, sales, business, management. Perfect example, the high road to financial success in our society is entrepreneurship, starting and building a business. 70% of adults want to start and build a business. 80% of all self-made millionaires come from self-owned businesses. Well, what they find is that most people go broke when they start a business. And the research is exhaustive. I mean, all the answers have been found. The reason is because they don't know what they're doing. They're flying by the seat of their pants. So they're making things up as they go along, and they're running it against the clock until they run out of money, and then they go back and work for wages. But then you have, on the other hand, you have serial entrepreneurs. Richard Branson is most famous, but you have serial entrepreneurs who start business after business after business. Everyone is successful.
Start it, build it, sell it. Start it, build it, sell it.
How can this be? It's because they're following a recipe. And if you learn the recipe, you can start one business after another. Because as Richard Branson said, if you can be successful in one business, you can be successful in any business because the principles remain the same. Wow.
And varied businesses, from telephones to airlines to all the businesses he started.
Basic principles remain the same. What I learned is that you can learn any skill you need to learn to achieve any goal you can set for yourself. And for me, coming from so far behind, I thought I was first, I was overwhelmed by the thought. And so I went out, when I got into sales management, I learned how to sell. And I just sold and sold. I couldn't believe how much I could sell. Within a year, I'd gone from living in a boarding house to having apartments in 3 cities, to flying on jets, to dining in the best restaurants, to never having less than $1,000 in $20 bills in my pocket. I have a Swiss bank account. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And it had gone literally from 24 to 25. Why? It's because I learned the ways to sell, and I practiced it over and over again. I got better and better at it, made more and more sales. Not mysterious. Then I got into sales management. Failed completely. And I realized, whoa, sales management is very different from sales. So I went back and I spoke to sales managers, and I read the books and the articles, and I learned how to do it. I learned the recipes, learned the formulas. The principle I learned, I say that all of success is combinations and recipes and formulas. A combination is like a combination lock. If you have the 3 numbers and you turn to the numbers in sequence, the lock opens. And the lock doesn't care. If you do what other successful people do, then the lock opens for you. Yeah. If you don't, the lock doesn't care. I say success is just like a combination lock, but with more numbers. So just find out the numbers, turn to the numbers in the proper sequence, and it opens for you. And that's why people can come to America from 194 different countries now and become successful. Because what the smart ones do, and I've spoken to thousands of them, they get here and they ask around, they look at members of their community who are successful, they say, how does it work in this country? They say, well, this is the combination, this is the formula. So they follow the formula until they master it. 10 years later, still not speaking English half the time. They've got large businesses, they're millionaires, their kids are in Harvard and everything else. Geez, they're sure lucky. They weren't lucky. Yeah. They never knew these things before. Anyway, so the second thing is recipes. And what I say is a recipe is a combination of ingredients in a certain way. And if anybody has ever developed a favorite recipe, then they got the recipe, they took it home, they got the ingredients, and they made it up. And sometimes I'll ask my audience, I say, how did it taste the first time? And they say, not very good. Now here's an important thing. Nothing works the first time. Nothing works the first 5 or 10 times. Sometimes you'll have to work at something for years before it works. Some of the biggest breakthroughs in history took 6, 7 years. The perfect example, the fax machine. The fax machine was developed, by the way, at the same time that Federal Express was trying to develop an electronic message center. They spent $185 million at it. Somebody invented a fax machine. And Federal Express wrote off their investment because the fax machine could do it almost at no cost. But it took almost 6 or 7 years before the fax machine hit critical mass. Almost all of us remember, have you got a fax machine? No, but the people down the hallway do. We can go down and use their fax machine. Remember that?
Yeah.
Now kids have fax machines.
Yeah.
Well, once it took off, it sold by the tens of millions, literally transformed the world. Cell phones straggle along. You might used to have a suitcase for a cell phone. It took 5 or 6 or 7 years, and suddenly they got the technology right and the price right, and boom. Personal computers. Each one of these things at a certain point, the IBM, best research at IBM said the world market for personal computers is no more than 300 to 400 units. Mm-hmm. That's what they said in 1975, 76. Right. So they just walked away from it. Then Apple came along and built their computer in a garage, and the world market became 100 billion units. Yeah. So when you start off with a new recipe, it's not going to work. Now, what happens when people get a new idea and they put it all together and try it out and it doesn't work? They give up. But the person who has tasted a dish, let's say you and I go to a friend's house or a restaurant, and they have a really great dish. Can I have this recipe? I say, yeah. Take the recipe home and we try it, and it tastes terrible. We say, wait a minute. We have an advantage. We know this can taste good because we have tasted it. We're not positive thinkers. We're not wishing and hoping and dreaming. We know it's just a matter of going back and looking at the way we mixed it.
And they usually call the person who cooked it for them saying, I cooked it, but it didn't taste that way. And then they get some help.
Yeah, do a little bit of this, do that. Did you remember to do this? Or wait, and let it sit and so on. I have a good friend, one of my clients, and he started off in sales. And for 6 months, he spun his wheels and sold nothing. And then he got a hold of my psychology of selling. And he told me over lunch, because he had hired me to address his organization, which was 2,000 people live and 85,000 people by satellite. Wow. And so we're talking over lunch. He said, you changed my life. It took me from rags to riches. He's now a very wealthy person, multiple businesses and so on. And he said, it was that cause and effect thing in your program. Here I was, I've been selling for 6 months. I couldn't sell anything. I was really desperate. And I was in my 20s, had a family to feed. And then I got that program and I listened to it. And it said, if you put it in the right causes, you'll get the right effects. Well, the effect I wanted was sales. I wanted to make money. But I realized I must not be putting in the right causes. So like in a recipe, went back and looked at each ingredient. And he said, I have to do more of this and less of that. I have to say this and that. And he began to change his sales recipe, if you like. Within 6 more months, he was top in his company. Within 3 more years, he was top in the country. Today he's worth about $21 million. Wow. He's very successful. He says that cause and effect, he said, if you just find out what other people have done to achieve the same result, you'll achieve it yourself. Yeah, yeah. So the third thing I talk about is formulas. And when you say this is a scientific formula, or this is scientific, what does that mean? Well, I came across this great concept recently, and the word that the scientists use is replicability. It's replicable. If it is a truly scientific formula, I say it may have been developed over many years by geniuses, but now it can be used successfully by morons. And when you understand that, that's why you see people. I say there's nothing that will make you madder than to see somebody dumber than you making more money than you. Yeah. How could that person be making more money? They're so dumb they can't find their behind with both hands. Well, the answer is they found a scientific formula, we call it a success formula. Sure. For their particular field, whether it's running a business or a recipe, or selling or making money or anything else. I have a good friend, we're here in Dallas talking, I have a good friend here in Dallas who heard that you could buy houses and you could accumulate houses by buying them at the proper prices and then financing them and so on. Well, he had just gone broke in a business and he heard about this and he looked at people who were doing it who did not look like they were Rhodes Scholars. And so he said, I'm going to buy 100 houses. And he went out, and over the next 3 years, he bought and accumulated 100 houses. Now, here's what happens. The first house was very hard. He had to look at a lot of houses. He had to do a lot of inspections. The first one is always hard. First sale is the hardest. The first person you hire as an entrepreneur is the hardest. But then he realized there was a system to this. So he attended a couple of courses, and he read the books, and he learned the system. And then he bought a second house, and he was able to finance in and finance out of that. And then a third house. He started off with no money. He said his goal was 100 houses in 3 years. He had 100 houses and about $3 million in equity.
Wow.
He said, well, it works.
And now he can probably drive down a street, see a house for sale, decide instantaneously whether he's going to pick up the phone and get a deal done in a day.
Yeah.
Because he learned it, it's easy to do for him.
But it was hard at the beginning. It was hard at the beginning. He made a lot of mistakes. And what happens with most people when they make mistakes at the beginning, they think that they must be deficient in some way, or the system's deficient, or the product's deficient. No. This is the price that nature demands for success, is you must fail. So all great successes have been great failures. Successful people fail over and over again, whereas unsuccessful people fail once and quit.
It reminds me of G.K. Chesterton in speaking. He said, it's not that it's been tried and found wanting. It's been found difficult and left untried. Do you think that that's really why most people never achieve that kind of thing? Is because it gets hard and they just stop? I mean, is it as simple as that?
Well, almost all of us have deep down fears of failure.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest single obstacle to success. And it's very easily triggered. It's very easily triggered by any kind of frustration, like we're on our way to work and we got an appointment and a traffic jam. Coming over here today, there was a traffic jam on the other side. Car was on fire. They blocked off the entire freeway for 25 miles. Everything was stopped. Well, that person gets on there in the traffic jam, and I'm going to miss the appointment. I'm going to miss the deal. I'm going to miss everything else. Oh, damn! And they develop what is called learned helplessness, because they feel helpless. I can't do anything. Then next time they think, well, what's the use? So don't even bother at all. And eventually, I say they talk themselves in, and they talk themselves right out of doing what is necessary for success. Whereas successful people, they say, okay, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. What's the next thing? I was stuck in a traffic jam recently. I was driving along the freeway, and it was out in the countryside, and you could see you're driving along about 70, 80 miles an hour, and suddenly all the cars are stopping. You're stopping. Do you realize there's a jam up there, and you can't see, but you can see way ahead. Cars jammed. The other side's whipping along. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just almost at an off-ramp. And you're thinking, well, should I sit in traffic and wait? And then I saw a couple of guys in pickups, four-wheel drives, SUVs, going right up the side of the ramp, back onto the road. They were driving off the road, driving down the boulevard, and right up the ramp and onto the road, and getting out and finding another route. And I thought, that's for me. So I turned off, and I drove and drove and drove, and I finally drove all the way around this traffic jam, which was about 15, 20 miles long.
Wow.
Got back onto the freeway, and it was empty. Freeway's it's like an empty parking lot. And I drove home. Well, I learned later that a semi had turned over, and the traffic was backed up for 3 hours. The entire afternoon. It was about 2 o'clock. For the entire afternoon, those people who did not move quickly were stopped. Now, there's a metaphor there. I mean, that's what successful people do in life. If things don't work, they try something else. They move quickly. They don't say, oh, well, maybe things will get better,
The masses just sit there and go, I wonder why we're not moving.
That's right. Yeah, so you find that entrepreneurs are very fast on their feet.
Yeah.
Here in Dallas, they made that movie. Actually, it was in Houston, Apollo 13, and Eugene Krantz was famous for that line. Where he stands up and he tells everybody, he said, ladies and gentlemen, he said, there's people talking about what we will do and how we will explain it if it doesn't work out and they all die and people are thinking of covering themselves. He said, I want to tell you something. Failure is not an option. Yeah. Failure is not an option. And that has to be your philosophy. As far as I'm concerned, failure is not an option. The possibility of failure is not even considered. There will be temporary setbacks and defeats and disappointments. Most self-made millionaires have been broke 2.3 times. Broke or nearly broke 2.3 times before they made it. Some of the most successful people in America. At one time, Henry Ford was the richest man in America. He was bankrupt at the age of 40, third time. Most amazing story, just never stopped. And that's the most wonderful thing. If you ask what's the key to success, is to become unstoppable.
Well, that's one of the amazing things about sitting here with successful people like yourself is I hear it over and over and over. I was born in poverty. Albert Benson, I was born in Ghana in a hut. And I like for the viewers to see everybody saying, I've had obstacles. I had, cancer. I was born into poverty. And it helps people say, wow, if they can do it, I can do it. Yeah. Because there's nothing that stops me from that.
Now here's a couple of quick points, and I tell this to my audiences. I say, remember this: nobody is better than you, and nobody is smarter than you. Get that out of your head, because that is a killer. It's a self-sabotaging idea. You see somebody doing better than you, the natural conclusion is if he or she is doing better, then he must be better. No. They're not better than you. They're not smarter than you. They just learned the cause and effect relationships before you did. Some of them are idiots. But what they found, but an idiot who's got the right formula will be successful, whereas a genius who doesn't will drive in a taxi cab at the age of 50. So nobody's smarter than you. Nobody's better than you. You have more intelligence and potential than you could ever use in 100 lifetimes. The question is, if it doesn't work, try something else. And it's very much like working out with weights. If you want to build muscle, I used to be a bodybuilder, what you do is you pump iron. In pumping iron, what you do is you pump blood into your muscles, and it breaks all the capillaries. It actually is an act of destruction. And then your body repairs itself and builds new capillaries around, which is how you build muscles. And it's the same thing with your mind, is when you have experiences and you have setbacks that are distressing and you learn from them, your mind pumps iron. You get smarter, you become quicker, you become more alert, you become more aware. There's a price that you pay. You can't go from innocence to success in a highly competitive society without getting bruised a bit. It's like someone wants to be a championship boxer, just doesn't want to get punched. You know, they say everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Well, everybody wants to be rich, but nobody wants to take the pounding that is necessary to be financially independent. Just keep remembering, failure is not an option. I'm unstoppable. Nobody's smarter than me. Nobody's better than me. If they're doing better, it's because they figured out the formula before me. But if hundreds of thousands of millions of people, America today has 8.2 million millionaires, almost all of whom are self-made. My daughter was married in August, and my first daughter, and 4 children, daughter, 2 boys and a daughter, and married to a wonderful young man, comes from a good family, and so she decided she wanted to have the wedding at our home. And so we sat down, and you never want to talk about how much it costs. They won't even tell me afterwards because it's too heartbreaking.
I have 3 daughters, so don't tell me that.
Oh, the costs are unbelievable. Whatever number they give you as the maximum number, multiply it by 2. Anyway, so in order to accommodate 160 people, they had this beautiful tent, like something out of the Arabian Nights, and bands and music and sushi bars and karaoke and flowers that you cannot believe. Everything. And so we're at this at the wedding reception after the wedding, and my son-in-law, Christina's husband, his family, they brought the whole family down, and they're all in our house from Los Angeles, in a 90-minute, 2-hour drive. And they're all standing around, and of course, there's a lot of face here. We want to be able to put on a wonderful wedding for your daughter. These people are wealthy. They own large businesses and law firms and everything else. So they brought them all down. None of them have ever been there before. They're looking around. It's not a bad house, and the wedding is beautiful, and everything is well. So I'm sitting there talking to 2 of them, the most successful of them all. And they said, "This is a beautiful house, Brian. You've done a wonderful job here." I said, "Well, I can't tell you how happy I am to be able to do this for my daughter, especially since I started with nothing. And I've made it everything I've done by myself." And the other person, who's in charge of a 102 lawyer law firm with 250 staff supporting the lawyers, multi-millionaire, he said, "Well, I started with nothing too." He said, when I got out of school, I had nothing. My family had nothing. The guy next to him is a senior partner. Said, "Well, I have nothing." Then they were referring to I call my father-in-law, the father of my son-in-law. Larry started with nothing too. Yeah. We're talking about everybody started with nothing. Everywhere I go, I talk to my best friend, one of my best friends who's got now a real estate fortune, about $25 million. He's an immigrant, came over, started with nothing. I find that this is a story of America. Everybody starts with nothing. People think, "Well, I don't have anything to start off with." Well, join the crowd.
Well, and even the people on the Forbes 400, the people who inherited it, they got it from somebody who started with nothing. It always is traced back to somebody started with nothing.
Yeah, it's the most amazing, John. It's amazing how many self-made billionaires there are. The richest people in America, if you start to look at the richest people in America, and I follow this and you follow it, number 1, Bill Gates started with nothing. Good education, good family, but nothing. Self-made. And number 2, Warren Buffett, started with nothing, self-made. Number 3, probably Larry Ellison of Oracle, started with nothing. Michael Dell started with nothing. Paul Allen started with nothing. And the next 5 are the descendants of Sam Walton, who started with nothing.
Exactly. And at the end, he basically is still driving that old blue pickup truck, you know, because he didn't need anything.
The richest people in our country, and most respected.
Yeah.
Now, here's a difference between America and most of the world. I speak all over the world. I speak French, German, Spanish. I do all kinds of seminars, multiple languages and cultures. But one of the differences in America is that if you started a business and you failed in the business, and I meet you for dinner or socially, and I say, how's your business going? You say, well, I went bust. I had to shut the doors, went bankrupt. My reaction would be, geez, that's amazing. What happened? Well, I did this, I didn't do that. Well, what would you do next time? Well, I'll do a little bit of this and this. What are your plans? Well, I'm going to start another business. In other words, in America, going bankrupt is not a mark of shame. It's a mark of maturity. It means that you took a chance, you gave it a shot, and it didn't work. And whenever you speak to a person who went bankrupt, they're talking about their next business, their next project. In America, you can start a business within 24 hours. If you go onto the internet, you can do it even faster than that. We have the fastest rate of new business formation of any country in the world. We have the most entrepreneurial country in the world, according to the OECD in Paris. We have more people starting more businesses in more areas, because you can start a business by just saying, I think I will have a business. You and I could say, Chris, why don't we start a business? Okay, and we're in business.
Yeah.
We can
Sign the paper.
We can start buying and selling before we can get any paper signed. He said, let's buy some stuff from these guys and sell it. Okay, great. I'll put in some money, you put in some money. We're in business before we walk out of the building.
Yeah.
We can do that. That's not possible in 95% of the world's countries. So America is wonderful. And if we fail, what do we do? Try something else. That's the attitude that all successful people have.
I always find it interesting, you know, we talk about is America great and all these, and the fact is if you open the borders up, the earth would tilt off its axis. Because everybody would rotate over to America because everybody wants to pursue, it's the American dream. Nobody talks about the Chinese dream or the European dream, it's the American dream of being able to build your own wealth and set your own destiny and that type of thing.
Hey there, it's Chris Widener, and I hope that you're enjoying this interview that I did with one of the legends of personal development. And if you'd like even more information and great resources from the legends of personal development, all you have to do is click on the link below in the description, and I've got plenty more for you. So with that, let's get back to the interview.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about, knowing you were going to be on the show, I got a whole list of things that I wanted to talk to you about. Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires. And I know that that's one of your major courses of research. What are some of the secrets of self-made millionaires? The people who start with nothing, like we've been talking about, and they end up at the end with a big stash.
They become millionaires.
Millionaires. What are the secrets of that? My book,
The 21 Success Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires, has just 21 qualities, and I won't give you all of them. But they're very simple, and lacking, the absence of any one of them can be fatal. I say, first of all, dream big dreams. I found that the number one reason that people do not become wealthy is because it never occurs to them that they can become wealthy. It never occurs to them. And so they never say, hey, I can become wealthy too. Because if you've been brought up in a poor background, if you associate with people who don't have much money, if you've been broke or have too much money at the end of the money for too long, it'll never dawn on you that it's possible to do it any other way. You fall into a negative comfort zone. The number two reason that people don't become successful is they never make a decision to. They say, oh, I'd like to, and I want to, and I hope to, and I wish to, and so on. But they don't make a decision, because if you make a decision that, by gum, I'm going to do it, and you'll find that every successful person is a decisive person. At a certain point, they said, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get in. Here in Texas, they have this great card game, Texas Hold'em. Texas Hold'em. Now, in Texas Hold'em, which is one of the most popular games of all, there's that point in Texas Hold'em where you go all in.
All the chips into the middle.
Now, it can be because you're down to your last few chips and you have no choice because you can't match anybody else, or it can be because you've got a great hand, but you go all in. They don't play Texas Hold'em in any other country in the world, because in America we go all in. If we make a decision and we go all in, and if we lose it, then we pick ourselves up and try it again. So the first one is they never occurs to them. They don't decide to, and then if they do decide to, they procrastinate, and they say, well, I'm going to, but not yet. They say, first of all, I'm going to take a brief vacation to a wonderful fantasy place called Someday Isle. And so they go to someday someday I'll give that a chance. And someday I'll read that book, and someday I'll set some goals, and someday I'll live within my means and save some money and so on. And so they live on someday I'll for the rest of their lives. And so it goes on like that. So I say dream big dreams, and just remember, and I finished a talk to 800 people just last week, and I was talking to them about the strategies of successful entrepreneurs. And at the end I said, remember this, 5% of adults in our society are going to become millionaires. But we don't know who they are. We know that of any 100 adults walking around today, at the end of their, or halfway through their career, 5 will be millionaires. But because of the uncertainty principle, we don't know just exactly which ones they are. I say, so let's take this room, and let's say not 5% of the people in this room, let's say 100% of the people in this room are going to be in the 5%. So I want you to just say these words, I am a millionaire. Everybody said it, I am a millionaire. And good, now, from this moment on, make that come true. Make it come true. Decide to and take action on it. And everybody's really happy with that concept because it never occurred to them to think, I'm a millionaire.
And they probably felt uncomfortable the first time or the first 5 times that you had them say it.
Yeah, and then I said, remember, everybody who's rich today was once poor. Everybody's at the top was once at the bottom. And nobody's better than you, nobody's smarter than you. So there's 100,000 ways that you can become millionaires. I said before, we have 8.2 million millionaires. That means we have hundreds of thousands and millions of men and women who started with nothing and become millionaires. So if all of those people can do it, hundreds of thousands and millions of them can do it, then so can you. Just make a decision.
And if you took it all away from them and redistributed the wealth to everybody, which some people would love to do, you and I wouldn't agree with that, but just get it all out, give it 20 years, 30 years, what's going to happen?
Give it 1 or 2, give it 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's all going to gravitate right back to those people who learned how to do it.
Yeah, it's like in Russia, they gave away state companies, and some countries they will, what's the word I'm looking for? They will nationalize or denationalize. They'll take a state bank or a state railroad and they give out shares to everybody. Within a year or 2, most of the shares are in the hands of a few people. They bought them all up. You were talking about tilting the world on its axis. My friend Bill Bennett, who used to be the Secretary of Education, was once asked by a high school student, what is the, how can you tell a good country from a bad country? He said, because we read all these negative things in the paper about America. Right now, America is the most prosperous country in the history of the world. There's more economic opportunity, more possibilities, greater longevity, faster levels of growth, lower levels of unemployment, higher levels of home ownership, and more possibilities than any other country at any other time in human history. This is the best country. This is the dream. This is the golden age that man has dreamed about for years and years and years. And yet 4 out of 5 stories in the press condemn the American economy. The majority of Americans today believe that America is in a recession. They say, oh, I'm doing really well, but just read the papers. America's in a recession. It has never been better. Anyway, so they asked Bill Bennett, the student asked Bill Bennett, how can you tell if a country's a good country or not with everything we read? He said, well, it's very simple. He said, you use the gate test. And what is the gate test? He said, you just raise the gate and watch which way the people go.
Exactly.
Isn't that great? Yeah. That's what you were saying about tilting the axis.
Yeah.
We don't even have to raise the gate. I mean, we have to have thousands of people, basically almost arm to arm on the borders to keep people out, because everybody wants to come here from every country in the world. There's no country in the world people are trying to get into. No other country. They're not trying to jam into Germany or France or Russia or China or Japan or anywhere else.
And nobody else has immigration problems.
That's right. Do you know that America is the most generous country in the world? Is that we give more in charity nationally and internationally than all the other countries in the world put together. And they say, oh, we only give 1.16% of our gross national product. But they don't realize that in America, most giving is private giving.
Sure.
It's by the tens of billions. The charity alone was last year was $186 billion. And it goes up every single year. No matter how much they change the taxes, people give more and more and more. Tens of millions. Look at the Gates have given, $46 billion to charities? We take in more immigrants legally, everybody illegally, each year than all the rest of the countries in the world put together. People always say, oh, America's this, America's that. Yes, we're the most generous, we're the most open, we're the most giving, the most prosperous society in history. So you can never underestimate the power of envy. The power of envy explains almost everything that's happening in our world today.
Well, and I was talking to Albert Mensa at the same table, and he said that's what drove him. He was in Ghana. They put a movie, an American movie, up on a side of a building.
Right.
And he said, everybody has shoes. In that movie, everybody, they're all wearing shoes. He had never seen a fork before. Or a spoon. He didn't. They always ate with spoon.
Yes.
And that's what drives them.
Yeah,
they
you scoop like this.
Yeah, they see what we have, and they wanna move here because of the American dream.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a MiG pilot. The man who flew the Russian MiG out of Russia into Aikido in Japan many years ago. It was a big story, big controversy, and everything else. Well, they asked him why he defected. He said, well, he was a colonel in the Soviet Air Force. He said, well, they'd taken the movie The Grapes of Wrath starring Henry Fonda, and they were playing it all over the country. That was a 1935 movie, okay? They were playing it all over the country as though this was an actual depiction of America today. Dust Bowl, Federation, everything else. And people kept going back to see the movie, and the Russians thought this was a great propaganda coup. So people went back, and then they asked them why. They said, the poorest people in America have got cars. And they had to pull the movie from every screen in Russia because it made he said, I want to go to a place where the poor people have cars. I have a good friend from India who was talking to a friend of his. He's an immigrant here, very successful. Talking to a friend of his in India. He said, all I want to do in my life is go to America. He said, why? He said, I want to go to a land where the poor people are fat. Because, you know, which is the case.
Yeah,
it's the
exactly.
Most amazing darn thing. Bill Gates has been very generous in speaking to university students. And he was once asked a question which came up several times, so he answered it the same way. He said, if a person was standing behind a screen and you could only ask him one question, you, Bill Gates, richest man in the world, ask him one question, and the question was to determine his economic prospects. Okay, what question would you ask? And he said the question is very simple. He said, "What country do you live in?" Because if you live in the United States, your economic prospects are better than if you live anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, your chances, you're in the ball game.
Yes, and then later on he was piggybacking. They said, "Well, if you could ask him a second question, what would it be?" And he would say, "What is your level of education?" What country do you live in? What is your level of education? Those two will more predict your success than anything else. Now, when I was in my teens, I failed out of high school. When I was in my 30s, I went back and took an entire MBA program at a leading university. And I didn't learn a damn thing. and I share this with my audiences because a lot of people have this uncomfortable feeling that they really can't be successful because they didn't get a great degree. So one of the things I emphasize is forget about it. What I discovered, and when I'm taking the MBA, I do a lot of research, is that 2 years after you leave school, whatever school you leave, whether it's Harvard or Huckabuck University, 2 years after you leave school and start work, nobody cares about what school you went to for the rest of your life. All they care about is your performance on the job now. And you can get the best education by reading practical stuff, by listening to practical programs, by listening to practical audios and seeing practical DVDs. You can learn more in a few hours with someone like you or I who's been out there in the front trenches sharing really practical stuff than you could in hours and hours and hours at the university. The very best education is self-directed education. And there's a reason for this. If you go to the university, 95% of what they teach you is unusable and you'll forget it by the time you get home after graduation. But if you are learning self-directed, everything you learn, you have selected because it will help you now to do your job better. So you're a self-directed education, if you have the discipline to do it, it's worth 10, 20 times a university education. So never let yourself be held back because you feel you lacked a formal education. Because most of those people with formal educations are working for people who dropped out of high school.
Speaking of practical stuff, one of my favorite titles of anything you've ever done, ultimately very practical because it has to do with what we do every day. Eat the frog, or eat that frog.
Eat that frog.
Eat that frog. Okay, tell us about that, because I think it's just a brilliant title for one thing. It's engaging and intrigue. What is that?
Well, it's based on a little story. It says if the first thing you do when you get up in the morning is you eat a live frog, then you'll have the pleasure of knowing throughout the day that's probably the worst thing that's going to happen to you all day long. Now, your live frog is your biggest and ugliest task. It's the one that will make the biggest difference in your life, the one that counts the most, the one that has the greatest impact. And it's also the one you're most likely to procrastinate on. So then there's two corollaries to eating the frog. One is if you have to eat two frogs, eat the ugliest one first. And the second corollary is if you have to eat the frog at all, it doesn't pay to sit and look at it for too long. Just get on with it. So here's the key to success. Here's one of the great keys to success, is make a list of everything you have to do each day and go over the list and say, if I could only do one thing on this list, which one thing would have the greatest positive impact on my life and career? Put a 1 next to that. And then ask the question again, if I could only do 2 things, 2, and write it down to 7. And then start on number 1. And if you can start on number 1 and discipline yourself to stay at number 1 until it's finished, you will double your productivity that day. If you do this repeatedly, you will soon develop a habit of starting on number 1. You will double your productivity and double it again and become a great success in life. And if you can't do that, you'll always have to work for someone else who will supervise you and hold your feet to the fire and make you do it. And so that's the choice, is that only 2% of the American population, 2 to 3%, have the ability to discipline themselves to do their most important task and do only that until it's done. And those people make all the money. The top 1% of Americans pay 34.47% of the income taxes, because the top 1% make that much money. The top 5% pay, 45%. The top 10% pay 55%. The bottom 50% of Americans pay 3.4% of all the taxes. In other words, they pay nothing.
Sure.
They're off the rolls.
Exactly.
That's why they always vote for more taxes on the rich.
Right. So I want to talk about another one of your programs, which is,
Right.
I'm guessing it's probably your best-selling of all time, Psychology of Selling. Is that?
Well, the Psychology of Selling is the best-selling audio program on sales in the history of the world.
Right.
It's not my best-selling, because my Psychology of Achievement is sold even more.
Oh, it is? Okay.
But Psychology of Selling has been a top seller in 16 languages in 24 countries.
Wow.
And it's the best seller in the English language. Outsold all other programs ever produced put together. More people have become millionaires listening to Psychology of Selling in sales than any other single influence. So it's really good.
So tell me the principles that are behind that. Obviously, it's a multi-CD program, but what are the basic principles of the Psychology of Selling?
Well, the starting off principle is that top salespeople have high self-esteem, which means they like themselves and respect themselves and value themselves. The word is they feel comfortable in their own skin. And when you genuinely like yourself, you're not continually preoccupied with what other people might think of you. You just like yourself. So therefore you like other people. And the more you like other people, the more they like you back, and the more they want to buy from you and recommend you to their friends. So that's the starting point of the Psychology of Selling, is that 80-90% of your success is going to be determined by how well you get along with others, by how much they like you. Because there's a factor that says that people will not buy from you unless they like you and trust you.
And it starts with liking yourself.
Yes, it starts with liking yourself.
What if you don't? Well, I mean, there are people out there who they don't, and maybe it's self-confidence. They don't feel confident about themselves. They're unsure of themselves. How do you get that? I mean, it's not something that you go, well, today I'm going to like myself.
Okay.
Where do you start?
One of the things we teach people to just say continually throughout the day, like lifting weights, just keep saying, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. And then we say, make other people like themselves. Now, the way that you make other people like themselves is you make other people feel important, which is what Dale Carnegie wrote 75 years ago. Is just make people feel important, make them feel appreciated, thank them, congratulate them, praise them, admire them, be a nice person, don't argue with them, just be a genuinely nice person. The number one word to describe the highest paid salespeople in every field in America is he or she is a nice person. Why do you buy from that company? Why do you buy from that person? Well, he, she, they're nice people. But what about with the product? You can get it cheaper somewhere else. Get better. Yeah, I prefer to go with it. They're nice people.
Yeah.
They're really nice people. They treat me well. When I phone up, they always treat me well. When I have a problem, they treat me well. So you find that your most successful people are nice people. But that niceness is a genuine expression of their self-esteem. So let's say a person starts off with low self-esteem, as I did, as you did, as everybody does. All right. Well, self-esteem is like physical fitness. It's a form of mental fitness. How do you become mentally fit? Well, what we find is that self-esteem comes from feeling that you're valuable, feeling that you're a winner. So how do you feel like a winner? Well, you win. Now, how do you win? Is you set goals, and you make plans to achieve the goals, and you work on your major goals each day. And each time you take a step toward achieving a goal that you set for yourself, you like yourself, you respect yourself. Your self-confidence and self-esteem goes up. And when you accomplish a goal, you get a surge of self-esteem. Your brain releases endorphins. You feel happy and elated. You like other people. You know, when I'm in love, I feel 10 feet tall. You know, everybody loves a lover. Remember that song?
Yeah.
Well, that's when you're successful, you feel wonderful about yourself. And that's why they say the very best time to make a sale is right after having made a sale. Because when you make a sale, you get this rush of endorphin. You feel happy. And when you go in to see another person, the person has not changed, but you've changed. Yeah. You're more positive, you're warmer, you have more energy, you're more enthusiastic. People just love to be around you. And sometimes you can get into a role where you make several sales in a day. At the end of the day, you're just racing because you're having so much success.
So do you think it's incremental that everybody starts here, and you would never feel comfortable in a room full of billionaires, but then you make $100,000, and now you're saying, hey, I feel comfortable around these people that make $100,000, and then pretty soon I'm a millionaire. And now is it just a matter of getting ourselves to the next level and feeling a sense of belonging there?
You know, there's one of the laws. I have a whole lot of laws. In one of my programs, I have something like 100 laws of success. One is called the law of incremental improvement. The law of incremental improvement says nobody leaps from average to superior. It's one step at a time. And everybody who is successful is impatient. So they say, I'd like to be wealthy. Well, now, when? Now. Well,
or yesterday.
Okay, you've made the decision, but be prepared to put in the time. I say, to get to the top of your field, you must become very good at what you do. This is one of the secrets of self-made millionaires. First of all, they have big dreams. Second of all, they accept responsibility. Third of all, they commit themselves to becoming excellent at what they do. Fourth of all, they set clear goals, have a clear sense of direction. They constantly upgrade their skills. They're teachable, they learn. So we say to be in the top 10% in your field, you're going to have to be in the top 10% in your field, which means you're going to have to become very good at what you do. There's no average, there's no high pay for average performance. And so how long does it take to get into the top 10%? There's 50 years of studies on the subject of mastery. How long does it take for a person to achieve mastery? Average 7 years. 7 years and 10,000 hours of hard work. And you and I are our speakers. And one of the things when I started off speaking, I would see other speakers who spoke so fluently and fluidly and beautifully. You have some of them on this show like Zig Ziglar and Dennis Waitley. And wow, these people are so competent. They're so smooth. Their timing is beautiful. And of course, when you start off, you're rough and you have good ideas and enthusiasm, but you're unpolished, as they say. Well, then I learned something very valuable, is that success in speaking comes from the number of hours you speak. If you speak a few hours a year, it'll take you a lifetime. You'll never be good. If you speak like the professionals do, 100 talks a year, average of 3 hours a talk, 300 to 500 hours a year. After 10 years, you've done 3,000 hours. After 20 years, you've done 6,000 hours. And nothing replaces the hours on your feet in front of a critical public audience.
Sure.
Well, it's the same thing in speaking. It takes about 7 years before you have spoken enough so that you're really good. Selling, diesel mechanics, neurosurgery, dentistry. Takes 7 years. Law, accounting. Takes 7 years. And when I first heard that, someone said, it will take you 7 years to master your craft. I had been in it for about 3 years. And I said, no darn way, not 7 years, not me. I want them all. Took 7 years.
Yeah.
So people say, if you want to be one of the highest paid salespeople in your industry, it will take 7 years. That's not just 7 years of doing the job. You've got to be reading, studying, practicing, starting earlier, working harder, staying later. I mean, you have to put it in if you want to achieve mastery, because there's a lot of competition out there. People say, oh, gee, 7 years. I mean, 7 years from now, I'll be 7 years older in 7 years.
I'll be 38 in 7 years.
So I ask this question. I say, really? I say, now tell me, how much older will you be in 7 years in any case?
Yeah.
And it stops them. I say, the only difference is, are you going to be earning an average wage, or are you going to be at the top of your field? Are you going to be average like most people, or are you going to be one of the highest paid people in America? The time is going to pass anyway. It's one of the great success principles. The time is going to pass anyway, so get on with it. Because one of the biggest regrets we have in life is I put off getting on with it too long. If I had just put my head down when I was 25, I would be at the top of my field today. Well, you can't change the past, but you can change the future. So start now. Some people just decide at the age of 50, by gum, I'm going to be one of the top people. Now, fortunately, they don't have to spend 7 years because they've got a lot of investment and 2 to 3 years of hard work, and suddenly they're earning 10 times what they were earning before. Because some people don't realize how close they are to breaking through. So
one of the things I love about you, Brian, is you always have something new. You're always reading something. You're always bringing some new statistic. What is exciting to you right now? What are the things that are fascinating you, that you want to do more research on, that you're learning about, that you see as our immediate future? What are you learning and growing with right now?
Well, I study in a variety of areas. I study politics, I study economics, I study business, I study spiritual things, history, and so on. My big thing right now is the centrality of entrepreneurship to every society. And what I've concluded, and I've started to write extensively on this, is that the rate of new business formation in any society determines the health and prosperity and growth and opportunities and future of that society. So prosperous societies have high rates of competent new business formation. And poor societies have very low rates. Corrupt societies have terrible rates. Our friend from Ghana will tell you it takes 6 to 18 months to start a business in Ghana. It costs thousands of dollars of corruption and bribes. And once you've started in a business, you put a red flag for the corrupt officials who come around and shake you down every few days.
And
so
make you unable to do your business.
So the Ghanaians are some of the most entrepreneurial people in Africa, and they're just totally frustrated in their ability to break out. Well, in America, you can start a business overnight. And my job, my goal, the things I'm most enthusiastic about is teaching people how to start and build successful businesses, because these are skills. And every business that goes broke because it's like a ship that founders on a rock, is they don't understand the importance of marketing or costing or pricing or advertising or budgeting or planning or organizing or hiring or delegating or supervising or selling or collecting or working with their banks. And all of these are skills that entrepreneurs, you can either take a whole life to get them, or you can take them faster. So what I'm most excited about is helping America to become even more entrepreneurial by not just having 2 million people a year start businesses, but having more and more of them start businesses knowing what they're doing, and then roll it out worldwide. Because I think the key to prosperity for Russia, for China, obviously, for Latin America, for every country, is a vibrant rate of new business development. And that's what offers more possibilities for more individuals to achieve more of their goals, to be independent, to be self-reliant, to be financially well off, to achieve all their goals and abilities. So that's what I'm kind of excited about right now.
Somebody's watching right now, and they're working somewhere, working for somebody else at the JOB, and they say, I really want, I'm listening to Brian, I listen to the other people on TSTN, and I want to be a millionaire. I want to achieve a greater life for myself, and I know that I'm stuck where I'm at.
Yes.
And I know that the key is entrepreneurism. What do I do?
Well, the starting point is to remember this, is that the key to entrepreneurial success is you have to sell something to somebody. You have to find something at one price, or create it, or build it, or buy it, or import it, or distribute it, and sell it at a higher price. In America, you can start, there's 1,000 businesses you can start for less than $25, or less, $50. Multi-level marketing is a high road. Most people who go into multi-level marketing don't make a lot of money in multi-level marketing, but they learn the business skills that enable them to succeed at a greater level in other areas. You could start a small business on the side. Sometimes, for example, I'll give you an example. There's a thriving business in garage sales. Is people have garage sales, and they're professional garage sale buyers who are waiting. Literally, you start your garage sale at 8 o'clock Saturday morning, they're there with their trucks. They are developed the ability to pick and choose and get the best stuff, and they accumulate. And then what they do is they sell it at swap meets, they sell it at antiques, or they hold their own garage sales.
And then there's the ultimate garage sale, eBay.
Exactly.
And people, you can sell anything to anybody, anywhere.
Absolutely. So there's so many different ways of doing it, but just please understand, key is you have to buy and sell something. People say, well, I'm not very good at sales. Get over it. For heaven's sakes, selling, everybody can sell. I mean, if we sell to our kids to go to bed on time, to clean up their rooms. It's selling and persuasion are skills that you can learn. And once you've learned the skill of being able to buy something and then sell it to somebody else by explaining to them why it's a good idea that they buy it, the more you do it, the better you get at it. The better you get at it, the more of it you can do. And so just remember that the starting point of becoming a self-made millionaire is to buy and sell a good or service. And to get better and better at doing this, and read the books on entrepreneurship, study your craft, learn what you need to learn. And there's really no limits to what you could accomplish.
What top 3 books would you recommend to people to read?
Well, in what field? You have to tell me the field.
General personal development.
General personal development. In personal development, I would recommend my book, Maximum Achievement. Okay. Many people say it's as good or maybe the best ever written. It's different from any of the other success authors and builds on top of it. In terms of selling, I would recommend Advanced Selling Strategies, my book on selling. In terms of business in general, I would recommend The Practice of Management by Peter Drucker. In terms of spiritual development, I would recommend the book The Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox. In terms of economics, I'd recommend Ludwig von Mises. So in history, probably A.J.P. Taylor. If there's every single field.
Sure. Yeah. I love the idea of reading books because you get to sit down with people who you'd never be able to sit down. Now, granted, we're not sitting down across the table from them, but we're able to hear their ideas and hear their thoughts. And I don't think people get that.
No.
What is the importance of books?
Here's a couple of points. Is first of all, you have maintenance reading and you have growth reading. Maintenance reading is magazines, newspapers, newsletters, emails, internet, all that stuff is maintenance reading that keeps you current with your field. It doesn't help you advance, but it keeps you current. You have to do that, just like eating the right foods. Growth reading only comes from books. Is when you read books is that you actually deepen yourself. You actually expand your wisdom and knowledge. You get things out of books that are almost impossible to get out of any other shorter source. But the second thing is audio listening. My whole life changed when I discovered audio listening. And the average person who drives 500 to 1,000 hours a year. That's enough to get the equivalent of a university education every year, just listening to really good audios on your business, on sales, on relationships, on health, on time management, on goals, and so on. You can become one of the smartest and highest paid people in the world just listening to audios. And then, of course, watching this program and watching DVDs that have experiences that you couldn't get without paying large amounts of money and traveling great distances. So if I were to give the big three for me for success is number one, take responsibility. Number two is write goals, make plans, work on them every day. And number three is dedicate yourself to lifelong learning. Because you can learn anything you need to learn to achieve any goal you can set for yourself.
That's good. I wanted to get to $1 Million Habits, so let's just get to $1 million habit. Give me the $1 million habit, because I know that's another thing you said.
I will give you just a double. Is decide what you really, 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 really want in life, financial independence, and then make a decision that you will persist until you succeed. You will never give up until you achieve it. Make the decision, shut the door behind you as far as you're concerned, is you will never give up. Failure is not an option.
Well, just like your books and your audio programs, sitting across the table from you has been fascinating, and I appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
To see Chris's interview with Jim Rohn, which was the last time Jim Rohn did a video interview, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there. What you're about to watch is the last video interview that Jim Rohn ever did. He sits down with Chris Widener to talk about how to get the right mentors, set meaningful goals, and stop being broke.